finish this unit, so we talked about Pluto, and it used to be a planet. It has been demoted, right, to a dwarf planet. And that was in 2006 because they found another object, also spherical, in the Kuiper belt. And first it was called Xena and Gabriella. So Xena, it was a very famous series, maybe in the 90s. I don't know. It was a woman warrior, and Gabriella was her sidekick, and then they changed the name to Eris and Dysnomia. So the Eris is the dwarf planet, and this is the moon, which is a more boring name, but I don't know why they changed the name. And then they keep finding new objects, almost spherical, inside the Kuiper belt. So Pluto was demoted because they it didn't clear out its orbit. So it's sharing its orbit with other giants. But we're going to see that this is also the case for Jupiter, and Jupiter was not demoted. So my opinion is that it was totally unfair. So anyway, we did that. And then about asteroids, most of the asteroids will lie here between Mars and Jupiter. It was supposed to be a small planet, smaller than the moon, but because Jupiter has such a big mass, it's constantly tugging on those little fragments, and they could not coalesce together to make a planet. So it's asteroids around here. And the first one was found in 1801, and Ceres, that was the name. So first it was planethood. It was promoted to planethood. It was like another planet. And then they keep finding other objects. So Ceres was demoted. So Ceres is the largest asteroid. So Ceres was demoted to be an asteroid. And in 2006, it was promoted again to be a dwarf planet. Okay, so it's the only dwarf planet that belongs to the asteroid belt. So Pluto was demoted from planethood to dwarf planet, and Ceres was promoted to being an asteroid to dwarf planet. Okay, go figure. So anyway, another interesting thing to know, and that was my point, is that Jupiter here did not clear out its orbit. You see, it's sharing its orbit with asteroids here and there. So these asteroids, you have a cluster of asteroids here and a cluster of asteroids there, and they are in a very stable orbit. So if you could see here, it makes a nice 60 degrees angle between here and there. One group is called the Greek, and the other group is called the Trojans, because of course you all know the story of Helene of Troy. Okay, the Troys and Trojans and the Greek didn't get along very well. The story didn't end very well, so that's the name they gave it to these two clusters. So the Greek and the Trojans. Now you see that Jupiter didn't clear out its orbit, and it was not demoted. It's still a planet. When Pluto, who didn't clear its orbit, has been demoted. So totally unfair. So anyway, in 2021, they launched a special spacecraft that is supposed to visit the Trojan asteroid. So I forgot when it's supposed, 2027. It's supposed to arrive in 2027. Okay, so this is called the Lucy spacecraft, and it's named after, Lucy, the hominid. How do you say the hominid? Okay, Lucy, let's see. It's a skeleton that was found in Ethiopia in the 60s, 74. Okay, this is Lucy. So it's named after her, right? And you know the story about Lucy, it's because they were listening to the Beatles. Lucy in the sky with diamond. That's why they named that hominid Lucy. 3.2 million years ago. and it was amazing because it had almost a full skeleton. So then they were able to see what she looked like, right? So anyway, that's a tangent. 2027 is supposed to arrive to visit the Trojan asteroid. Okay, so you have very interesting asteroids. Most of them look like potato. So this one is very famous because it has a itsy bitsy, very cutie moon. Okay, that's the name of the moon, Dactyl. So it's very, very small here. You have another one here that was visited by the Galileo spacecraft in 1991. This one has also a very nice name. It's like a French name, Mathilde. Okay, it's very unusual because one side is very, very dark. It means it absorbs all light from the sun. And then that's not all. People think asteroid is just between Mars and Jupiter. No, you have other asteroids between Jupiter and Neptune here, and they are called the centaurs. So centaurs, they were these creatures, half horse, half men, that were very mischief, right? They didn't like men, and they always play trick on them. So anyway, they are called the centaurs, yeah, and they are named after Greek centaurs. So those asteroids have a very, very unstable orbit. Okay, unstable meaning could happen that one of them leave the orbit and hit the Earth, right? It's not impossible. Okay, and then that was very interesting. That happened in 2021. They had a mission. Like, I don't know if you watched the movie with Bruce Willis. It's terrible what happened to him, right? But before what happened to him, he made this movie Armageddon. I don't know if I say it right. The idea is that there was an asteroid that was aiming at the Earth, and they sent a mission to deflect the asteroid, right? So they were trying to do that to see if it's working. So they had a mission called DART, and DART sent a projectile on an asteroid to see if it was possible to deflect it. And they did in 2022. And they did, but by a tiny bit. Okay? So they aim at this asteroid. So this is the asteroid. They aim at the moon of this asteroid, and they sent a projectile that was able to deflect it. Okay, so it was a mission by the NASA to see if it should happen. Will it be possible to deflect it? But the deflection was ridiculous. So if an asteroid is really aiming at the Earth, there is not much we can do. So anyway, I have a video about that mission. It's called DART. Here. So this is Ariane. It's a European rocket from French Guiana. Kourou, that's the town. That's a projectile. That's the moon. So the moon of the asteroid. That's what they aim at. And they did it. And it worked, but deflection was very small. So that was in 2022. Okay, so for those who came late, I have to leave at 11 a.m. If you want extra credit on the test, you can build an electromagnet, and And you have an example here if you want to look at it. It has to work. If it's working, it's 10 points on test number 2. If you try, it's like 4 or 5 points. Okay. Okay. So when something hits the Earth, it's called a meteorite. So it doesn't have to be an asteroid. It could be also a comet. Okay, so when you have a projectile and you have the name here Earth written on it, it hits the Earth, that will be called a meteorite. So that will be for the definition. Okay, so meteorite, it's a rock that hits the Earth. Meteor is when you have like rocks going through the atmosphere and it's burning into the atmosphere. It's going to leave a trace, and these are called meteors. Okay, so sometimes it's going to reach the Earth, and that was in 1954, the first recorded event of an asteroid or meteorite that hurt a lady here. That was Chicago 2003. He went for the ceiling. So I don't know if the insurance will pay for that. I don't know if it's part of the insurance policy to cover for meteorite impact. But if it belongs to you, you can always sell it. And that will cover the work that you have to do, maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Okay, so you have different types of meteorite. Those who are left unchanged since the formation of the solar system, and those who have been processed. Yes. Yeah, she was burned. Big burn. Yeah, she survived because it goes skim through. I think you can chat GPT, but I think she survived. She was burned. Okay. So sometimes a meteorite will end up coming from the moon or Mars. So sometimes you have pieces of the moon or pieces of Mars that will hit the Earth, and that's a very cheap way to get them, right? So you don't have to go to space. You go to Antarctica, where it's very dry. You dig, and you can find meteorite, and sometimes it comes from the moon or it comes from Mars. Okay, and then we have comets. Comets can reach the Earth. It can be a meteorite, and it can cause mass extinction. So that will be our next unit. 65 million years ago, there was a comet, 10-kilometer wide. Okay, so it's very big, that hit the Earth. So some of it evaporate into the atmosphere. The leftover hit the Earth, causing mass extinction. So not only dinosaurs die, not only the dinosaurs, right? Like 2/3 of species on Earth were extinct. Bye. Nothing left. Only little mammals, right? That happened 65 million years ago. So that was a mass extinction. So those meteorites, if they are big enough, if they are not destroyed, like most of them into the atmosphere, they can hit the Earth and cause quite a damage. Okay, so comets, dirty snowball, you can think about that. So comets, they can come from the Oort cloud, so very far away from the sun, or from the Kuiper belt. So Halley comet comes from the Kuiper belt. It takes like 100 years to go around the sun. If they come from the Oort cloud, it can take like thousands of years to visit the sun, to visit us, and go back. And sometimes they visit and they don't come back. Depends what is it is tugging on them. Okay, so you have a comet. Comet is called, it comes from the Greek name long hair. Okay, because here you have the nucleus. Okay, and it's like dirty snow. And then here you have the tail. The tail is made of dust and plasma. Picture comet. Let's see if I have another picture. So that's the first picture we have of a comet that was done in 1530. right? So he drew. So I think he was an astronomer. He drew the comet, but in a very nice way, because the first time he was showing that the tail of the comet is away from the sun. So if this is the sun here, the tail is pushed away from the sun. Okay, so it's like radiation pressure from the sun is pushing the tail away. And why do you have a tail? Because when the comet gets close to the sun, it's going to start to melt. Some of the dust, start to leave the comet, and it's going to make a tail. But the tail is always away from the sun, away from the sun. Okay, so it's the first report written, it's a drawing that we have, uh, which is quite precise, of a comet. Okay, so for example, it could come. So this is the solar system. This is Neptune orbit. So a comet can come from the Kuiper belt, where you have Pluto, Eris, and the dwarf planets, or it can come from the Oort cloud. And again, if it comes from the Kuiper belt, the period, how long it takes to go around the sun, is about 100 years. If it comes from very far away, it's going to be thousands of years. Okay, so this is the anatomy of a comet. You have the nucleus here, right? And when it gets close to the sun, it's going to start to melt. And you have a dust tail here, and you have a plasma tail. Plasma meaning ions, like protons and electrons, right? Small particles. See, it's being pushed by the sun away from the sun. So the sun is here, that's going to be the tail. So nucleus of a comet is a dirty snowball. Okay, and here that's a very nice picture so you can understand. So what it's going to do, remember Kepler's second law. First law, anything in the solar system is going to describe an ellipse, and a circle is a special case of an ellipse. Second law, when it's going to go around the sun, is going to speed up and then slow down, takes forever. Speed up and then slow down. This is called the equal area, equal time law. So, zoom, takes forever, takes forever. This is because when it's close to the sun, you're going to have a pull due to gravity, which will be very strong because the distance is very small. And as it's going to move away, the pull due to gravity is going to get weaker. So it's going to, very quick and then very slow. So the Halley comet, last time it came by us was in 1985, 1986. So we had a very short window to observe the comet. And it won't be back before 2061. So I won't be around. Hopefully you will be around. So you see, this is the sun, and you see how the tail is away from the sun. No more tail here because it's farther away from the sun, so it's not going to melt. Okay, so it's in a nutshell. So these are very famous comets, recent, quite relatively recent, with pictures that we have. 1970, Bennett comet. You see, 1700 years. So if you see it in 1970, you're not going to see it a second time. Okay, that one is even worse. 500,000 years to come back and visit us. 1975, you only see it once in your life. This one is another example, 1996. It was discovered in 1996, 100,000 years for the period. This one, I think there is one question about it in the pop quiz today, and I have to leave at 11 a.m. So if you need anything from me, ask me on Wednesday, because I have to leave at 11 a.m. sharp. So anyway, that was 1995, and I will tell you a very sad story about that comet, Halley-Bopp. And they took a lot of pictures of it. but you see 2,500 years to go around. You see it once in your life, you won't see a second time. So Halley comet, very famous comet that we talked about, beautiful picture. You see you have the plasma tail and you have the dust tail. And 76 years is the period. Okay, so it takes 76 years to go around. And the first time that it was reported here, pictured, it was in the tapestry in 1066, so really early Middle Age, that tell the story of invasion of England by the French. William the Conqueror invading England, and this is Harold. I don't know, it was Harold II, the king. He was very unfortunate, right? Because he died, his dad, his father died, and then he was attacked from all sides, from the French, from his own brother, from the Norwegians. So at the end came the French. All the army was exhausted, and at the time there was no tank, so most of the army had to walk and walk and walk to meet the French, and it was a disaster. And French took over for a while of England, right? William the Conqueror. So anyway, you see the comet here. So that's Halley comet, and the typical question, I think, for test number 3, for example, or pop quiz, they they sent in 1985. That's when it was the last time the comet came to visit us, right? I remember it was everywhere in the news. So they sent a spacecraft to analyze Halley comet. Okay, it looks like a peanut here, and they named the spacecraft Giotto, named after the famous painter here, Italian painter. And you see he painted that comet here as the Star of Bethlehem. Okay, so very famous painting here. So let's see. I think I have a short video. So it's a European mission. So when it's a European mission, it's always launched from Kourou in French Guiana. You see, I have two Guyana. One of them is French, and that's where they launch the rocket here, Ariane. You see, Ariane, it's like French name from there. So it was a European mission. I can speed it up. If you have any question, let me know. I'm going to speed up even more. So that's a spacecraft. And it's going to meet Halley comet. So it's leaving Earth. Here. See Halley comet and Giotto. It's European Space Station. So that's the comet. So it passed by and it collected data. So if you want, you can Google it, right, to learn what exactly did they learn about the comet. It's an interesting mission. Okay, so same thing. So the comet will go really fast. So you have a very small window during which you can take pictures and observe the comet or meet the comet with a spacecraft. And then it takes forever to go around. Next time will be 2061. So don't miss it. Okay, the window will be very small. Okay, and then you have other interesting missions. Um, uh, all around comets. So this one happened in 2004. It was called Stardust. So the technology behind it is very interesting because they had some kind of um, gel. So it's very special gel here, and this is like something like a racket, right? That we collect dust from the comet, right? So they collect it here, they sample it here inside that gel, coming this way, and then it's going to slow down. And then they send the samples back to Earth to analyze that. And they did it twice. So very interesting mission, very highly technology, advanced technology. So they call that an aerogel. So it's like something like to scoop dust from comets and to analyze the dust. It's very impressive. We don't do that anymore. Like, where are all the spacecraft? They used to send so many of them. So that's interesting. And then also interesting here, it's called deep impact. Okay, so they send a projectile to hit a comet to see what's going on inside. Okay, to dig into it and to analyze the debris after the projection, after the projectile hit the comet. So I don't know if I have a picture or a video. It's called Deep Impact.
So this amount of activity, more than 2 weeks before the deep impact collision, suggested that there would be a fair amount of stuff ejected during the collision because already the comet was pretty active and pieces were breaking off. Here's an artist's conception of what the impactor might look like right when it's nearing the comet. And here's an animation showing the whole process. So there's deep impact releasing a 370 kilogram projectile. And the cameras on the deep impact spacecraft turned in such a way as to watch the projectile as it got close to the comet and hit the comet with a speed of 10 kilometers per second. This is like a bullet hitting a bullet in the middle of empty space. And so all this stuff got ejected, and then the cameras and the spectrographs on the deep impact spacecraft could study the ejected material and determine its composition and watch the trajectories of the ejected material and thus determine the gravity and the mass of the comet. And all sorts of interesting things were found out about the comet as a result.
So that comes from your book, okay? It's Alex Filippenko is the author of the book I'm recommending, right? So that's come from there. It's called Cosmology in the New Millennium. So they did that to Comet Sample 1. Okay, and again, interesting things. They discover evidence, water, ice, organic materials. So some people think that maybe life was seeded by a comet that hit the Earth long time ago. I don't know, it's possible. Okay, so here they just show you this is a comet, right? This is Jupiter orbit. This is a comet, and then they launched the spacecraft from the Earth, and then they met. So the impact happened here, right? So left Earth and meet the comet here in 2005. So the comet is called Temple 1. We have a lot of comets. And then talking about meteor showers, it seems, but it's an optical illusion. When you have a meteor shower, it's when you have a comet crossing the orbit of the Earth, right? So all the debris following the comet is crossing the Earth. And what we're going to have on Earth is a meteor shower. All those debris will be attracted by the Earth, and most of them will burn into the atmosphere. But from our point of view, it seems it's coming from one point there, but it's not what is really happening. It's just an illusion. This is happening because, for example, if you are looking at the sun, it seems that the rays here come from one single source, but the rays are really parallel to each other. You can see that here, right? So if you have a source of light here, it seems that everything is spreading out, but it's not. It's just an illusion. So when you have a meteor shower, that's what you're going to see. So meteor shower, I think I have a website. So here. So what's happening when you have a meteor shower is that, so this is the Earth. So this is the orbit of the Earth revolving counterclockwise. And here you have a comet, and you see with debris that will share the orbit of the comet. And when this track or path crosses the path of the Earth, that's when all those debris gonna fall on Earth, and we call that a meteor shower. So if you are interested, you can see them. It depends on the season. So here you have a comet, and you have all those debris crossing the path of the Earth, and it gets into the atmosphere, and we see a meteor shower. So very famous. You have the Gemini that you can see in December. It comes from it seems to come from the constellations Castor and Pollux. You have the Leonids, also very famous, coming from the constellation Leo. Okay, it seems to come from the constellation Leo. That's why it's called the Leonid. You have the Taurids, also very famous, coming from Taurus, the constellation Perseids, also very famous. Next one will be in August. Okay, so maybe you can watch that, coming from Perseus, and so forth and so on. Okay, so it's just the debris that share the orbit of the comet that they cross the path of the Earth, and we have a shower on Earth, right? But most of the debris will burn into the atmosphere. Is that clear? Any question? So meteor shower, you have like enthusiasts, right? You have big fan of meteor shower, so they go outside, they take pictures, and it's so easy today because everything is online. You know exactly where to go, where to look, and with an app, you see exactly which part of the sky you will have those showers, right? So, for example, here you have the Perseid meteor shower that seems to come from the constellation Perseus, and the comet involved is this one, Swift Turtle. Every year, from July 23 to August 22. So some comets have our name on it, right? So okay, so that's the sad story I was telling about, and I'm leaving at 11 a.m. So pay attention because it's in the pop quiz today. There was this comet, very famous comet. 1997, it was called Halley-Bopp. It was first time it was seen because it takes thousands of years, 2,000, 2,500 years to go around. Okay, so and already at the time the technology was developed enough that beautiful picture was taken of this comet, Halley-Bopp. So it was all over the news, right? And you can see the comet, you can see the two tails here, always away from the sun. You have the dust and you have the plasma. Okay, so what happened? So there is this crazy guy, and his name was Marshall Applewhite, and he was in charge of a sect in California, and he was a very good public speaker, and he had like 39 people with him belonging to that sect, and he claimed that following this comet, when this comet will be very close to the Earth, following it, you will have like a UFO, okay? and ready to take them to heaven. So the sect was called Heaven Gate. He was able to convince, because you can manipulate people. For some reason, that's human psychology. Sometimes it's easy, like to manipulate. 80% of people are very easily manipulated. Okay, so he was very good at that, and he convinced people to listen. We have to commit suicide, and if we do, the UFO will pick us up and take us to heaven. It's a very interesting story. I mean, terrible story, of course. And it was the largest mass suicide on US soil. The people, 39 people dead, found in a mansion somewhere in California. And they were all prepared to die. So they were all in white, dressed in white. Okay, you have to check it because I forgot how they were dressed, but specially dressed for the event, and I think they poisoned themselves, so they all died. I don't know, maybe they went to heaven or not, but it's a terrible story. Now, interestingly, there is the Family Guy, very famous episode Family Guy that tell that story. So I don't know if you watched that episode and if you understood the reference, because Family Guy authors is like South Park. They have very good reference. Okay, they have a very nice um, culture. So anyway, in that episode, it tells that exact story. So you have the Apple White people guy in charge of the sect, and you have all the members dressed the same way, and they are about to commit suicide. You see, they have the poison here, and Peter comes to save his daughter. Meg, she has like dad daughter relationship issues, right? But he came to save her. It's a very interesting episode. So anyway, the other thing that was very interesting was they all wear Nikes. They were wearing the same shoes. And those Nikes that they were wearing after the mass suicide, Nike decided to stop making those shoes. So they became like something very expensive. So now, if you want to buy them on eBay, it's like a collector. It's like $1,000 Nike shoes. So I thought that was also interesting. You can Google it, right? Nikes. What was it? Was called Heaven Gate suicide shoes. Okay, those the Heaven Gates Nikes, yes. So if you can buy them, it's from 1990s. It's called vintage, but they are very expensive. Like, you see, I didn't lie to you. $1,900. Heaven Gate. So it's kind of creepy to buy. I mean, it's not that they belong to those people, but still, it's kind of creepy. But anyway, some people made money, out of that. It's interesting. Okay, so it's interesting story. So that happened with the comet Hale-Bopp, and you have a question on the pop quiz today. So it was all over the news, like 39 people committed suicide. Just easy, how easy some people can be manipulated. So that's the story. Okay, and I'm gonna finish here with interestingly, in the 1970s, everyone was very interested in science. Every kid wanted to be an astronaut, right? And it was the time of Carl Sagan, and they wanted to know if maybe we could communicate with extraterrestrial life. So they sent like this mission. That was the first one that was sent. You have Pioneer. What was the name? Pioneer 11, Pioneer 10, and then Pioneer 11. So that was 1973. That was sent just to communicate with extraterrestrial life. That mission was also done with the help of Carl Sagan, so very famous. I don't know what Carl Sagan with a C, Carl Sagan. Okay, very, very famous here. He's the one who said we are the dust child. Stardust. Sorry, we are stardust. And he was very, very good at making astronomy available to everyone because he was a very good lecturer, Carl Sagan. So anyway, he was involved in that mission. And what you see here, it's showing possible extraterrestrial life, how to find us. So first of all, they have a picture. So this is a plate. I think it was made of aluminum, gold, gold and aluminum, right? So picture of a woman and a man, so they know what we look like. And then here you have a pulsar, like a neutron star, just for them to understand where we are located relative to the sun. So it's like a map to help them help them finding us. So I am not sure it's a good idea to tell everyone the universe where we are, because you are supposing that everyone is found in the universe. So sometimes I don't know if it's a good idea, but that they did, and it was great. And in 2003, this is how far it was from the solar system. So it kept going, right? So that was interesting. And then they did another one, even better, amazing. That was called Voyager 2. So in that spacecraft, they had a record. So back then, during my time, they have vinyl record to listen to music. So they made this special record here. It was made of gold. I mean, at least it was covered with gold, right? So it was a golden record, gold and copper. And they placed this record inside the spacecraft with image of the earth and sound from the earth, right? So if the spacecraft is found by extraterrestrial life, they know what we look like. Not only that, they know what's going on earth. So that was 1977, and in that golden record, that's what you see. So you have some math, okay, some supermarket here, Olympic game. What else do you have? They show men, women, pregnant. They show babies. They show us a different stage of our life. They show how the Earth evolved from when it was only one continent and then the continents split apart. They show evolution here, and how bad the American diet is, I guess. They show some chemistry, the DNA. They show spectroscopy here. They show the moons, the surface of the moons, some math again. Ooh, they show a page of Principia from Newton, right? Principia, the most famous book written in science. And it's showing how we escape gravity from the Earth, right? It's showing also an astronaut, a rocket, music, and much more. You had also sound. Look at that. It's showing Arecibo radio telescope. At the time, it was still working. Traffic jam, very important, and X-ray. So many. Okay, it's not exhaustive, and it's also controversial because inside that record, so it's also very famous. So I went to the Frost Museum. So there is an exhibition about space, and you can see. So I don't think this is the original, but you see what it looks like. So I guess the aliens had to have a turntable to listen to the sound or to look at the image. But if they have an advanced technology, why not? Okay. Interestingly, why was it controversial? It's because inside this disk there was a welcome message from the UN secretary at the time, which happened to be Kurt Weidheim. Kurt Kurt Weidheim. I hope I say it right. It turns out that he was a recycled Nazi. So after World War II, some Nazis were recycled, right? Didn't evaporate. They were recycled. So he was the secretary of the UN, and inside that record, he has a very famous greeting message. So in that exhibition, you could listen to his message, and then at some point things got out. So he was from Austria, and came out that he was a Nazi, used to be a Nazi, SS. So he had to step down, but nothing bad happened to him. Right? So that's a recycling of Nazis. And we talked about this guy, Ivan Brown, also recycled by the US, but he made the program to the moon possible with the V2. Another recycled Nazi, and that's Voyager 3. Okay. So interesting story. Okay, so this one came up before, so that was the first one, and then that will be the second one. Okay, and Carl Sagan was really trying to reach out to extraterrestrial life, and he did that with SETI. He built a program called SETI, and SETI is still going on today. It's to try to get communication, to communicate with extraterrestrial life. So if you want, you can be part of this program. Like you download an app on your computer, and then they use your computer, try to get communication from outer space. So far nothing, but it's an experiment. Can still hope. Okay, and he was working with someone named Frank Drake. Okay, Frank Drake also really believed into extraterrestrial life, and he developed an equation to find what is the probability for you to find extraterrestrial life in space. So him and Carl Sagan helped developing these missions trying to contact extraterrestrial life. So if you want, you can be part of SETI. Okay, any questions? Again, if you come late, I have to leave at 11. You have a pub quiz. As usual, it's open discussion. And if you want to have extra credit on test number 2, he built an amazing electromagnet, so you can build your own electromagnet. It has to work, so you can ask him. And it has to work, right? It has to pick up paper clips. Why electromagnet? Because we talked about the Earth behaving like an electromagnet. That's why it has an electromagnetic field to protect us against radiation coming from space. So that's for extra credit. It's worth 10 points on test number 2 if you want to do it. It has to work. Okay. And what else? I'm leaving at 11. Test number 3 is coming up. I talked about that at the beginning of the class. So if you came late, you can ask someone who was here. And it will cover solar system and cosmic collision. That's what we are going to do now. Okay, so times to time, you have a meteorite big enough to kill everything on Earth. So mass extinction. So it happened 65 million years ago. Sometimes it's going to leave an impact, no big deal. But sometimes it can bring the Earth to a boil and destroy everything. So when there is a big impact, like a meteorite hitting the Earth, it's going to involve what we call in physics kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is the energy of motion. Not only it's going to be proportional to the mass, so bigger, more impact, but also proportional to the speed squared. So if it's going really fast, is gonna hurt a lot. So when you have a meteorite hitting the Earth, or if you have a big projectile hitting the Earth, all that kinetic energy is gonna turn into destruction, okay, destroying, heat, bringing the Earth to a boil, and starting a nuclear winter, right? Because all the dust after the projectile hit the Earth will go around the Earth, right? And it's going to block sunlight. Sun cannot reach the Earth, and then everything dies because the plants they cannot grow, and the plant eater cannot eat, and everything dies. Most of life. Okay, so when we want to find how much damage is done by a meteorite or by a bomb, we use the equivalent in kiloton of TNT. So for example, if you look at Hiroshima, right, the first atomic bomb, it was 15 kiloton of TNT. So people think of Hiroshima, they think if they're gonna think about cancer. There is no cancer here involved. Everything is destroyed by the bomb itself. You don't have time to develop cancer, you don't have time to develop radiation sickness, everything is destroyed. 15 kiloton of TNT is enough to wipe a city. Right? So if I have picture, I'm not in the right unit. Hiroshima, okay, after the bomb, wiped, everything is wiped. So that will be 15 kiloton of TNT, just to get a sense of that unit, TNT equivalent. You see that the only thing left was like a church here, and the photography has been colored Hiroshima. And is that still Hiroshima? Yes, Hiroshima. Hiroshima. See, no cancer here. Everything died from the explosion. Okay. And then you had, so that was 15 kiloton of TNT. So that was uranium, a bomb made with enriched uranium. And then the second bomb, they didn't have to do it, but they did it to try it because they didn't try it before. That was a plutonium bomb. Okay, it's even worse. It's worse than a uranium bomb. The technology is more advanced if you use plutonium, but you have more energy delivered. That was 25 kiloton of TNT. Okay, now the largest, and then that was atomic bomb, so uranium, plutonium. And then during the Cold War, they came up with the hydrogen bomb, so even more energy delivered. So hydrogen bomb is when you fuse hydrogen together to make helium, like in the sun. Except the sun does it under control. This is out of control. So huge amount of energy delivered because E equals mc squared. So these are the nuclear bomb that we have today, hydrogen bomb, right? And the largest one tried was called Tsar Bomba. It was a nickname because that was by the Soviet Union. We're talking about 50 to 60 megaton. Megaton. So mega means 1 million. 1 million TNT. Okay, so one hydrogen bomb is about 10,000 atomic bomb. Atomic bomb means a uranium or fission. So this is fission. Atomic bomb is a fission. You break uranium or you break plutonium. In that case, is fusion. You fuse hydrogen into helium. Huge amount of energy is being burnt out. Now, the nuclear bombs we are using today, thermonuclear weapon, are hydrogen bomb, and it's going to be delivering about 1 megaton of TNT. Like a typical nuclear bomb today is 1 megaton of TNT. Now, you compare that to the meteorite that wiped out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, wiped out not only the dinosaurs but everything else, right? Almost everything else. That was 100 million megaton of TNT. Nothing survived. That means it's 100 million hydrogen bomb. 100 million hydrogen bomb. So a typical hydrogen bomb, like we have today, a few countries have the hydrogen bomb or the thermonuclear weapon. That's about 1 million megaton of TNT. This is 100 million hydrogen bomb. You can imagine how destructive that is. Okay? So those meteorites could come from there. So it could be asteroid or it could be comets, right? So next time we'll talk about that. Okay. Again, I have to leave. So if you need something from me, ask me on Wednesday. There is a pop quiz opening at 11 a.m. I just want to make sure it's opening